Here's more wrestling news for July 10th, 2022, and we're kicking off this afternoon with WWE, who right now have a serious problem regarding Roman Reigns. In recent weeks, fans have seen far less of the tribal chief in action, and when he does wrestle, it's mostly in six-man tag team matches with his cousins, the Usos. It's very rare these days to see a singles match with Reigns that isn't either on a premium live event or for a title, and now we have an idea of why that is happening. On the Cheap Heat Productions podcast, former WWE magazine writer Brian Solomon explained that having him in tag matches hides how few legitimate challenges Reigns has. With Cody Rhodes, Big E, and Randy Orton injured and Brock Lesnar not wrestling on TV, WWE has very few realistic opponents that would make sense for him to face one-on-one. Hopefully this situation will change when these injured superstars are back, but with many expecting Cody to be the one who dethrones the undisputed WWE Universal Champion, until that time, expect plenty more six-man tag matches for the Bloodline. If you were watching TNA in the early 2010s, then you'll know of Crimson, who the company were pushing as a huge deal. Unfortunately, Crimson never quite reached the heights the company wanted for him, and after allegedly headbutting his wife in a hotel room back in 2016, he was arrested and subsequently released by the company. Crimson later returned to the company under his real name Mayweather, and while he now owns his own wrestling promotion, he recently made a public appearance far from the ring. A tweet detailing security personnel at a recent rally for former President Donald Trump was posted this week, and the former Crimson was providing security for the event in Alaska. Wrestling fans were quick to spot the former TNA World Tag Team Champion, whose own wrestling promotion, Tried and True Wrestling, has been working with the NWA since 2017. It was just earlier this year that Crimson captured the NWA National Championship, which he lost a month later to current champ Jax Dane, and this week's appearance was a surprise for fans. Back to WWE, and there are few words that spread more dread in Stephanie McMahon's promotion than the phrase budget cuts. It is budget cuts that have been used to excuse hundreds of job losses over the past few years, and now 2 more are gone. PW Insider reports that Arya Daivari and Curtis Axel are no longer being brought in as WWE producers, which has been explained as due to budget cuts. The report says that everyone's work has been made harder by these latest budget cuts, and despite a push for more producers, WWE isn't budging. It's worth stating that both Daivari and Axel had been working on a probationary basis, and WWE clearly did not feel they were needed anymore, but the highly stressed team of remaining producers would beg to differ. WWE is working with fewer producers now, but one name who is still with the company is Ava Raine, who fans made better known as Simone, daughter of The Rock, Johnson. WWE have decided to ditch the Johnson name, much to the chagrin of fans, but Reigns' NXT debut was teased this week. At a live event in Citrus Springs, Florida, Reigns was spotted during one of the women's matches, but didn't compete herself. Instead, she walked out to the ring, appearing to scout talent, before abruptly returning to the locker room. Reigns is yet to make her on-screen debut in NXT 2.0, but we now have an idea as to what her character will be, so it may not be too much longer before she's on our screens. Now, Vince McMahon's future in WWE is in severe jeopardy right now, as he is currently under investigation for allegedly acting inappropriately with WWE employees. When the first article from the Wall Street Journal came out, it was said that McMahon had arranged a $3 million payout for one employee he reportedly had an affair with, but this week it was said that a total of $12 million had been paid out across 4 different women. This wasn't the kind of PR the ex-WWE CEO needed, but this will likely be the last we hear of stories like these. On the latest Wrestling Observer Radio, it's reported that there are not likely to be any more non-disclosure agreements revealed. That doesn't mean that there aren't more potential women with something to say, but that any other women who were paid hush money will keep quiet to protect a future return to WWE. 4 reports of inappropriate behavior is still pretty terrible for McMahon, but as bad as things seem, we aren't expecting any more NDAs to be revealed for the former CEO of the company. Over to Raw now, as on this week's show, Otis was involved in a hot dog eating contest and later competed in a 6-man tag. With a ton of processed pork products in his belly, Otis ended up projectile vomiting during his in-ring appearance, but that wasn't the initial plan. Sean Ross Sapp reports that the originally slightly different plan was for Otis to vomit on Chad Gable, more specifically on his wrestling boots. That didn't happen in the end, as Otis simply projectile vomited into the air, and while the segment was pretty disgusting, it could have been much worse for Chad Gable. Now this month, it was reported that Tyson Fury has been in talks with WWE regarding a potential return to the pro wrestling company. Fury's last appearance for WWE was in late 2019 when he had a brief feud with Braun Strowman, culminating in a count-out win over the Monster among men at that year's Crown Jewel. Given that Fury has been teasing a match with Drew McIntyre for years, many have expected that this is what WWE has planned, but the Gypsy King apparently has ideas of his own. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the reports of WWE being in talks with Fury were confirmed, and it was added that Fury has expressed a desire to have a match with new WWE signing Logan Paul. This stems from the two men's brothers, Tommy Fury and Jake Paul, and the belief is that while there would be a size difference between Tyson and Logan, that's a problem anyone in WWE not named Drew McIntyre would have to face. WWE hosting a match between Tyson Fury and Logan Paul would certainly get mainstream attention as two of the biggest names in their respective fields, but it all hinges on getting Fury signed for a return. Over to AEW now, which has been plagued by injuries in recent months, with several top stars out of action. Now, Tony Khan has confirmed that yet another star is injured, but only because a fan was accusing him of far worse. When a fan tweeted that Khan has given up on Penelope Ford, as she hasn't been seen in a while, Khan responded saying the opposite is true and that she isn't medically cleared at this time. Khan didn't explain what injury Ford, an AEW Women's Roster original, is facing, but hopes for her to wrestle again soon and for fans to stop thinking he's given up on the talented wrestler. One big name currently injured is Kenny Omega, who hasn't competed since last November's Full Gear pay-per-view. Recovering from several injuries that Omega had been working through during his tenure as AEW World Champion, there's still no sign of his return, and Jim Cornette has no sympathy for the cleaner. On his Drive-Thru podcast, Cornette explained how Omega being out of action for so long is his own fault. Maybe he should have thought about things before he started doing all the goofy shit where he dives out of the ring like a fucking whooping crane and just lands willy-nilly wherever and all this other stuff. I genuinely do not wish that he should injure himself. I just think that he should take this time off to reflect on his profession and get a new one so that we don't have to watch him anymore. Omega does have a high-risk, high-reward style to wrestling, and clearly, Cornette thinks it hasn't paid off. We can only imagine what kind of pop Omega will get when he eventually does wrestle again, but there's still no word at all on when that will be. It's been nearly 2 months since Naomi and Sasha Banks walked out of WWE, and neither woman has shown any sign of returning to the company. This week, Naomi got fans talking with her Instagram story as she wrote about having to stop people taking advantage of you. As you'd expect, fans saw this as a reference to WWE, who have suspended the former women's tag team champions without pay and are reported to have released Banks already. If Naomi is saying that WWE has been taking advantage of her, we doubt we'll see her back in the ring for the company, which may be what the Glow wants after all. One name who definitely will be wrestling in WWE, and that's Roman Reigns, who has dominated the company for years now and is showing no signs of slowing down. For years, fans have speculated on a match between Reigns and his cousin The Rock, which is reportedly the plan for WrestleMania 39, but that may not be for the Tribal Chief's undisputed WWE Universal title. As former WWE Magazine writer Brian Solomon explained, the match could be bigger than the title, and having a title involved would only disrupt plans. If the Rock-Reigns match is for the title, then it almost guarantees that Reigns will win, as the Brahma Bull will be simply too busy in Hollywood to have a run as champion. While The Rock did have a brief WWE title run in 2013, he is an even bigger Hollywood star now, and his schedule is even more packed with blockbuster projects. If it's a non-title match, that means Reigns will have to lose the title between now and WrestleMania 39, but we'll just have to wait and see what WWE has in store en route to the April 2023 event.
Darby Allin was at an autograph signing, just hanging out with fans casually, and suddenly it turned into a violent event as Brody King made his way into the scene. King started manhandling Allin, dragging him around and pushing him. As Allin tried to regain control, Brody placed him in a chokehold for a while, which looked very real indeed. He then lifted Allin and powerbombed him through a table at the venue. A bit later, Allin got up and was okay, but odds are he will be seeking out some payback when Dynamite or Rampage roll around next week. The attack by King stems from an encounter the two had on Wednesday's Dynamite, though Allin probably never thought it would all lead to this. Brody King's actions pretty much outline his intentions. While there weren't many fans present at the venue, most of them didn't interfere and kept on silently recording the almost minute-long onslaught.
Well guys, that's our news for today. Please share your comments below. Also hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to receive all notifications. And as always, thanks for watching.